Hey guys, and welcome to another Unity video. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use the new Unity input system in what I believe to be the simplest and the easiest way to do so. Now, of course, this is a personal preference. If you have not, I implore you to check out other tutorials on how to do this. There are multiple ways of doing it. This is just what I found works best for me. So let's get into it. The first thing you want to do is you want to go to Window, Package Manager, and search for the input system within the Unity registry. Now, when this pops up, you simply install it. I've already done it, so I won't do here. And once that's done, you just allow it to override the old Unity input system, which is an important note that if you install the new Unity input system, the old one will not be usable. So any code that's using the old input system, it will be broken. So keep that in mind. Now that we've done that, we are just going to go to our player, which is a simple capsule with a character controller, and we're going to create a new script, and we are going to call it player input. We're going to attach this script to our player character, and we're going to open the script in Visual Studio Code. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to type this. You want to go using Unity engine.input system. This will allow us to use the new classes and methods from the input system package. Next thing you want to do is you want to create a new public, because we want to be able to see it in our editor, and it's just much easier than typing serialized field. So we go public input action, and then we type in, let's call it WASD, because most people use WASD as movement. Now if we go to our Unity editor and wait for this to compile, you'll see that we have a WASD little component over here. So what this does is this is going to handle all of the input that we assign it to. Right now we can assign any input we want to it, which is why this is really handy. So let's assign some input to it. We go to plus, and then we add a 2D vector composite. Why 2D vector composite? Well, because we have a 2D vector that's representing the y-axis from -1 to 1 and the x-axis from -1 to 1. So we add a 2D vector, we just leave the name as it is, and for the up we double click on it, we go to the path and we go to the keyboard, and then we type in W. And there we go, now we have W set as up. Down, I believe we can just search S on the keyboard, left is A on the keyboard, and right is D on the keyboard. Awesome, so we have WASD for up, down, left, right, and we can almost start using this. Another thing we have to do is we have to enable and disable this on enable or disable. So what we do is we go here, we go void on enable. Now this is a Unity method which is going to be called when the component is enabled, and then we go simply WASD.enable. Make sure to call the method and not set the boolean. Now we want to do the same for disabling, so we go void on disable, and we go WASD.disable. Awesome. Now keep in mind, if you do not do this, the input action will not work. Awesome. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to debug log it, just so we can see what's going on. So we go debug.log, and we're going to do this. Now we want to get the value of the actual input. So we go WASD.read value. Now what value are we reading? We're reading a vector2. And there we go, and we might as well put it to string, just to be sure. Now that that is done, if we go into our game and we click play, you'll notice it says 0, 0. That's because we're printing it out each frame. But if we hold the D key, we have a 1 value for the x-axis, and we hold the W key, we have a 1 value for the y-axis, and all of these for each of these axes. Another thing to keep in mind is that the values are already normalized. As you can see, when I hold both the A and S keys at the same time, we get a value of -0.7 and -0.7. So this is something that's already normalized, so you don't have to do it on your own, which I find to be a pretty handy feature. So let's actually use this value to move our character. Let's go to Visual Studio Code. And instead of just debug logging it, let's assign it to a vector. So vector2 input vector. We'll say that this is equal to the vector2 value of the input action. And now we can manipulate the player with the input vector. Now what we're going to do is we're simply going to go and get the character controller component, which is going to be public character controller, and we can simply put it on start to get the component. So controller equals get component character controller. Awesome. Now what we do is we go controller dot move, and then we go input vector times time dot delta time, and let's give it some speed. Let's say 3.14 f. So let's see how that works. We go to our game. We wait for it to compile. We clear it. We hit play. And as you can see, we are moving our... Whoa! Okay, what I did here is I moved it in the wrong axes. I found a bug. Now, this is a really often bug that I do literally every single time I create a character controller. Now, here's the nature of the bug. We have a vector2, which has an X and Y component. It doesn't have a Z component. Now, we want to move our character on the X and Z plane and not the X and Y plane, because the Y plane is the vertical plane, and as you can see, our character will begin flying. Well, if that's what you want, this is good, but in our case, we don't want the character to fly, so we're going to do this. We're going to create a vector3 final vector, and we're going to call it new vector3, like so. So final vector dot x is equal to input vector dot x. Final vector dot z is equal to input vector dot y. So there we go. Now instead of using the input vector, we use the final vector. Let's keep this a little bit more organized, like so. Actually, let's do it like so. And now we can see that it will actually work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Awesome. And as you can see, we are moving our character using the new input system. And if we want to, we can simply change this to anything we want. So we have a 2D vector. And if we go and add another binding instead of a 2D vector composite, and let's use a mouse this time, and let's put the mouse delta. So now we'll be able to move our character with just our mouse or just our keyboard or both at the same time. As you can see, as I'm moving my mouse up and down, left and right, the same code works just the same as I'm using my arrow keys, or actually my WASD keys. So this is a really cool thing you can use the new input system for, is that it actually allows you to use the same code for the same input, but you can use different input methods to give the values for that input, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, that's it. You can really do wonders with this. It's a really cool system. I personally love it. I use it all the time for each project. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I would really appreciate a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.